call in and ask a question or anything like that, that's fine. And what's really interesting, Deborah, with all the experiences you've had, have you looked into the concept of, and I'm sure you do this, what about psychic protection? I think that with all these contactees, abductees, or people that don't want to be pulled into these programs, have you come across anything which helps you as
Oh,
far as keeping?
yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I found out, and I will mention this briefly. I know that that abduction attempt that I had the last time, I know that was military. I know that was not aliens.
Okay.
I never felt like it. I never felt like that was. I didn't get the feeling with that as I did all the other instances, and it was at a time when my fiance, he's been abducted many times. He's writing a book and everything, and he had experienced a lot of that stuff. I had never experienced that type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
where 1 second you could be awake and then all of a sudden you're paralyzed. That was terrifying. But the feeling was so strong, I started getting, all of a sudden, just out of the blue, I'd always felt that I was mildly empathic. You get premonitions about things and that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, all of a sudden, it started intensifying. And I started picking up on people, feeling energies. But before that got to what it is now, we contacted people who did that, who could put protection, who could remote come and help you remotely, astrally. They could protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And people can laugh all they want, but when we got this group, we actually got Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. We contacted his group, and he's a good friend of ours. And they did protection for us because it was very strong. It was a very foreboding feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I would walk through the house after that, and I started just sometimes when you are just learning all the ins and outs of what empathic really means, you see things, but you don't know what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what it is. Sometimes you just make a note of it in your brain. I was telling someone the other day, if I have any gift, it's patterns. I recognize patterns. I recognize I'm able, if I find something that's odd, I will take that piece of the puzzle and I'll put it back in my brain. And
Mm-hmm.
then 8 years later, somebody else will have an experience and I'll connect it to that piece I have.
Right.
Well, I was picking up patterns of things that I now know were interdimensional. I was always feeling like somebody just walked by me, like somebody was in the room, but I couldn't see who was in the room. I now know from research and talking with several other researchers and reading books that many people believe that there are multiverses, that we may exist in this plane in a physical form, but we also can exist in another realm, in another form,
Mm-hmm.
with our consciousness.
Right.
I had a near death experience when I had surgery back in 2006,
Mm-hmm.
which is about the same time that I experienced that little weird creature trying to peer into my eyes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in surgery. They didn't know I had atrial fib. I didn't either. And I went into cardiac arrest. And the next thing I knew, I was above the operating table. I was out of my body. And I could see the nurse run out the door to tell my daughter what had happened. And I could hear my daughter praying for me because, she's a singer, goes to church, and I raised my kids in church. I could hear her praying for me. And I just remember saying, could I stay a little while longer? Could I stay a little while longer? I could hear my heartbeat. I could hear the monitor with my heartbeat on it. I could see how disturbed all the people were in the surgery room. And somebody heard me because 4 hours later I woke up in ICU and I was alive. I stayed there for 8 days, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
and ever since that incident, I started noticing more things that were, quote, paranormal. I have since then found out that when we die, when a human being dies, it releases a chemical inside their brain that activates a part of their brain. You might, it's like, you hear about people saying they have their third eye. It's
Hmm.
like your pineal gland opens up. Well, when you die, that's what happens. A lot of people, have you noticed this, Solaris? A lot of people that have had near death experiences, they all of a sudden they are more in tune with everything that's around them. They pick
Hmm.
up on stuff. They're psychic.
Right.
You know, you had a friend of mine, a guest, Lori Moon Boggs. She's a great example.
Hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
she died 5 times on the table, and she is probably one of the most incredible, intuitive empaths I have ever met.
Hmm. Very ethereal and also very angelic.
Very angelic, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that she is true and sincere in what she does. In fact, she's a mentor of mine. And as I've been trying to understand these things that I've been seeing and not recognizing, she's been coaching me about what it is and to not be frightened about it.
That's wonderful.
And that's what we're supposed to do, Solaris. We're supposed to all help each other. But so often abductees or people that are empathic, and I sense that you have empathic abilities as well.
Hmm.
It's because I think the world is afraid of things like that. They're afraid of having a tag on them. But you know what? People like Lori, people like you, my fiance, all of us abductees, I think we're all heroes. We're heroes because we're not afraid to open up and say it's okay. This is me, this is my experience, this is how I am. I accept it. I'm using it for good to help people.
Hmm.
I,
Exactly.
it takes a lot of bravery to stand up and be counted among the ufology crowd. It does.
I
I've
agree.
seen I've seen people being mocked, harassed. I spoke with a gentleman the other night on my show that called in. He says my mother hasn't spoke to me for 10 years because of my experiences.
Oh.
This is such a sad thing. I want to
Hmm.
change that. That's why I love it when people call in. And if you're out there right now, call us. Call us. I want to talk to you.
Yeah, 347-688-2902 if you guys want to call in.
And the more
Absolutely.
people that do it, the more we really become family. We are all family, even though we might have, I do believe that we have alien DNA, that they have modified our genetics. There's just too much proof for that not to be true.
Hmm.
But
I agree.
we've got to learn to not hang labels on each other, because I'm as sincere about this as anything I've ever been about. This is a true phenomenon. Extraterrestrials, they do exist. There is more out there than just stars and comets and stuff. There's multiverses. There's all kinds of extraterrestrials.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And when you said you felt like that was a military abduction, now I was going to ask you, what state was that in?
This was in Washington.
Okay, it
This
wasn't
was in
Washington.
Washington.
Okay. Was your fiance, is he connected to the military at all, or?
No, but he is connected. Well, I will say this: he has a book that's coming out soon, and it's called Alien Contact: The Difficult Truth. And his story starts from a sighting in Washington that happened in 1984, I believe. He saw a UFO. He went outside to watch the the lights. What do they call them?
Not the Northern Lights. No.
The Northern Lights. Yeah, he went out to watch, to see, because the newspaper said it was going to be a good viewing night, and he saw a UFO and two F-16s in hot pursuit. The UFO landed beside of a hospital, that at the hospital they took care of sick children that had mental delays and serious diseases where they were couldn't live on their own. It was basically a hospital for sick children. The UFO, he said he couldn't see the landing gear if it was on the ground, but it was within maybe 5 or 6 feet of the ground. The F-16s kept on buzzing it. They would swoop down and come within a few feet from the top of this thing.
Hi, we just got put on hold. Somebody tried to call in and it put us on hold. So I think what's happening is the phone lines are not forwarded. So sorry about that. Are you there, Deborah?
Oh, yes, I'm
Okay,
here.
we just, it looks like when they tried to call in. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to be able to answer this, you guys.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad that's what it was because, I always expect interference when I talk about this part of, my experiences and stuff. But
yeah, sorry about that, you guys. I'd like to answer the call. I'm not able to do that because the server's going on hold when I do. So something's going on with the phones, maybe they're not forwarded or something. We had problems too. We had a storm at the station and the system went down for a while, so I don't know if that's it. But yeah, so what were you saying, Deborah? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh, no problem. But these F-16s were from a local air base that wasn't far away, and he said they were aggressively buzzing the craft. Like he said, there was no way they would come within that close a distance. They were like saying, "Get out of here, get out of here,"
Mm-hmm.
and they constantly did that. He watched it for almost 45 minutes. Okay, he called the sheriff's department. He called the newspaper. Both of them hang up on him.
Wow.
Okay, so what happened next, and his name is Derek Tyler, by the way, Derek Tyler.
Okay.
What happened next was that sighting affected him so much, he started researching it. And he remembers when he was a small boy, one of his dreams was that he would love to meet an extraterrestrial and talk to them and learn about the universe. And he, when he was a little boy, it was 5 or 6, I'm not exactly sure. He was just a little boy. He said one night, there were lights in the sky following their car. So he was always interested in that stuff and very intelligent guy. He could play piano when he was 4 years old, playing chess, very smart guy. So it really bothered him about that sighting that nobody would take it seriously. So back in the 90s, he started a chat room on, this was the old computers, the old, I think it was a Mac or something, really old. And you used to not could pull, it was all just words and stuff. They didn't have imagery or anything like that. They had chat rooms called Internet Relay Chats, IRC.
Mm-hmm.
And you were able to open what we would consider now a very primitive chat place. And so he thought, well, this would be a good place. I bet there's a lot of people who have saw UFOs or talk about being abducted. They would like to get together and have somebody to talk with. He said, and plus I'll ask them some questions. Maybe they have seen something in this area. Well, what happened was this chat place, this chat room, UFO chat, people came from everywhere. Before he knew it, there were close to 2.5 to 3,000 people in there. He was the only admin. He got so many people from all walks of life, teachers. He even got military pilots in there. He got people from all walks of life, young, old, saying, they're laughing at me. People laugh at me because I say I've been abducted, but I know something happened to me. So he was there taking down their experiences, talking with them, and it got the attention of Bud Hopkins, which we all know was a very famous researcher,
Mm-hmm.
for ufology. Well, Derek started referring people to Bud, and so him and Bud worked together. And Bud interviewed a lot of the people in that chat, and so they worked together like that. Well, it came to the attention because that military people were coming in there, that what was going on. And so he would get an email saying, "Hi, I'm in there because we think it's great what you're doing, and everybody makes fun of them, but you're doing a good thing." So that's how it got started. Well, eventually, someone was in there that was actively involved in stuff with the military. An officer that had high security clearance. He became friends with a couple of people that recognized first how intelligent he was, um, and they became very good friends to the point where they met a couple of times in person and talked for a couple of days at length. And this person, the he calls him the colonel, actually worked at the Pentagon.
Hmm.
And he has had all the proof. He saw the pictures, military, you know, clothing. He was given information, pictures of the colonel with different people in the military. The other person that was his friend, was his best friend, was worked at NASA. So they confided in him. The colonel said there was a faction that worked in the military that was not pleased with how our government was doing with the extraterrestrial information. And so it's those discussions over months of time that prompted the colonel to ask him, would he write about this in a book? He said, "It's nice for me to be able to talk with someone that I know is not going to write my name down in a book and do a tell all." He said, "I have to trust someone, and I'm going to trust you." So the colonel confided lots of information to him. So it was all written in a book, and it was sent off to the publisher. And actually, it was sent off to an agent, yes. So the agent got it ready to be published, and the next thing Derek knew was he got a knock on his door, and there were two men there with sunglasses on, dressed in suits. And they basically told him, "Do not publish that book because we can make you disappear."
Oh, brother.
They
Wow.
they identified themselves and where they were from, and it's one of those little organizations that has three letters. And they
You don't want to say which
identified.
one, huh? Can we guess?
No, oh, you
That's
can
all right.
guess.
That's fine.
Yes. Oh, yes. I don't even say their name
That's
because
okay.
I was contacted by one of them a few months ago that worked in one of those little three-letter things.
Oh, okay.
So they told him, don't publish it. We'll make you disappear. And so after that, his chat room was hacked. They started sending messages out as him, horrible things to the people to try to get the group to disband. They tapped his phone lines. They called up his fiancee and told her that he was a bad person, that she should leave him, and they kept on doing that, so she broke up with him. Um, so, the book was put on hold.
Oh,
But he has updated the book, and how I met him was I put out an ad for guests for my radio show. And he said, "I don't know what it is." He said, "To this day," he said, I haven't spoken about it." He said, "I just read that and I knew I had to call and talk to you." And he told me in a nutshell, he had close encounters of the first, second, third, and fourth kind. And wrote me about the colonel and said, I'll be on your radio show. And I got like 12 or 13 responses. But when I read his and when I heard his voice and did the interview, everything in my being, 1,000% told me he was telling the truth.
mm-hmm.
And he was. I've helped him with his manuscript. I've read his manuscript. I know it probably almost as good as he does. It's information that has weighed heavily on his shoulders. Nobody understands when they come after you and they tell you they're going to do this, you're always looking over your shoulder. You give up a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's tired of that. He wants to fulfill his promise to the colonel and to humanity. And he knows that when this book comes out that he will probably could be in danger.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, sometimes you got to live with yourself, and that's what is wrong with a lot of these abductees or these people, what they call them, whistleblowers. I hate that term,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
whistleblower, because our government already knows that it's the truth.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
People say, "Oh, we want disclosure." Disclosure's already happened. We already know. We all know,
Mm-hmm.
and their response is silence or nothing.
Right. Yeah. Well, we are the disclosure. There's no doubt about that. That's the contactees, the MyLabs, beings like you and I. I mean, yeah, we are the disclosure. We've been disclosing the data and putting ourselves out there to do it.
And you know what? The one reason I do this, I have grandchildren. I have grandchildren. I have two grandchildren that they're 7 years old, but they have shown signs. You know, I don't dare talk to my daughter about it because, you know, they just think I'm weird. And they say, "Do you have to talk about this stuff all the time?" And I'm thinking, I've worked my whole life. I'm retired now. This is my life's work. I'm doing this because it makes a difference that you should know that
Mm-hmm.
our government is lying to us. They're not only lying about it, they're using the technology. You know, there's underground bases. I was researching the other day and speaking with Derek. Some of these underground bases cost billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who's paying for that?
I'm sure we are to some extent.
We are. We have paid for it. You know, I before I retired, I was a social worker and I worked with the poorest of the poor. I had many people who had to decide whether to get their medicine for diabetes or to pay a car payment or uh, to try to get some kind of to go to a dentist or something
Mm-hmm.
because making minimum wage you can't do all three. You
Right.
honestly can't. You know, your power bill has to be paid. I had people starving, and they have the technology. If you hear about a new technology, Solaris, that, you know, the other day I was reading about a technology that they had, holographic technology, how they can make things seem like they're invisible, all this kind of stuff. Our government has known about it for probably 50 years or more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, they're very advanced, even more than that. Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. And they almost flaunt it too. The sad part of it is, Deborah, that they flaunt a lot of it. You know, S4, Area 51. They've got the Area 6 now with the drones. I mean, they flaunt this technology. But you're right. We could change the world overnight and help all these people instantaneously if they would stop this abuse, what I call abuse of power, and also the obfuscation, because a lot of what they're doing is insidious. It's more about controlling and manipulating versus real protection and shielding. So, yeah, I mean, don't get me started on that one. But
Oh,
yeah.
you're exactly right. You know, I can tell you really get it. And but the majority of people, your everyday person on the street, they have no idea
Hmm.
such subterfuge is going on.
Right.
They don't believe that the United States, which happens to be, I read earlier that UFO sightings have increased 35%, and you know the United States is at the top of the list for reports.
Hmm.
And I think it's because the people in America are tired of it.
Yep.
They're tired. They're saying, yeah, we're going to report it. MUFON, you know, put out the statistics. They have increased 35% since last July. California is the number one state for UFO sightings, and just a coincidence, there's a military base, you know,
Hmm.
underground off the coast of California. And I think the next one, I know Washington is in there somewhere, Texas, New York. A lot of sightings in New York.
Hmm.
So we have the technology. We capture, with thank God with the cell phones, we can just go snap, snap, snap. But have you noticed the answer always is nothing? You know,
Mhm.
there's never any comments. Recently we lost Dr. Edgar Mitchell, and I just love Dr. Mitchell. I worked some with his organization, Free, with Ray Hernandez,
Mhm.
and along with Edgar Mitchell and Gordon Cooper. I loved Gordon Cooper, and he was just a down home boy. He's had a UFO sighting. He knew that they were real. What brave men! What brave men! But you know what? I never heard one word against them from our government that they were liars or not telling the truth. Did you ever hear anything? I never
Mm-mm.
heard
No.
anybody.
No, not at all.
It's
No.
always just silence.
Mhm. Right.
But to me, that's guilty.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Well, we know more about it. I mean, the fact that you've been where you have and where I've been, yeah, we pretty much know more than they probably do to some extent, I would say, just because of personal experience. So, I mean, gosh, I know
exactly.
more about the covert technology and some of the artificial telepathy programs than half of their divisions do. So, you know, but and it's
Well,
true. They're very quiet about it. They are very quiet about it.
we whatever we've experienced, I found this out. When I had Ray Hernandez on my show, he told me, he said, in some of our research, we did a lot of surveys, and we found out that around 36% of abductees have had a near-death experience. So immediately I thought, oh yeah, I have. I've had near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
My fiance, Derek Tyler, has had a near-death experience.
Mm.
Okay? And lots of other abductees have had a similar experience, or they're empathic.
Right.
And so I've started studying that, and I found out a lot of information that I think is good. But whereas, I don't know a lot about your experience, but I can tell your research has went towards things that you felt were used against you, or um, that you feel drawn to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely was used as a lab rat for a lot of their technologies. There's no doubt about it. Test pilot for a lot of it. Yeah, and it was like a near-death experience because when you interface with this type of artificial intelligence program, it takes you down. It takes you down on a vitals level and reboots you with the system. So yeah, it is kind of a death in a different way. But yeah.
It really is,
Mm.
and nobody can ever understand it unless they experience, can
Right.
they?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the way it is. And that's the funny part is, and I wouldn't have believed it had I not experienced it myself. I never anticipated anything like this existing, my entire life. And when we come across these events, and we're star beings, and I always say that we are star people. We are
Yes,
definitely not from here. Our essence of origin is from the stars. We go home to the stars. We contain all that knowledge within ourselves and our atoms and consciousness. We're very clear on that. But society, how it gets programmed and dumbed down to some extent, which is a shame. It's a total
right.
disservice on such a global scale. And I'm
It
so
is.
appreciative of the work you're doing, Deborah. It's such an honor to talk to you tonight. I'm so glad you're here tonight communicating your information. It's just a pleasure to hear you and a real nice, I don't know, it's just nice to have you on. Spiritual
Well,
sister.
yes, it is, and I felt that. I felt that immediately when we talked before. And I like what Carl Sagan said. He said, "We are stardust."
Mm-hmm.
Even before any of this stuff happened to me, I used to think, am I adopted? I don't feel like this place. I feel weird. I feel out of place. I feel strange. And I didn't know why. I was
Mm-hmm.
always pondering about the stars, always drawn to the stars. Even I can remember when I first started living on my own every night, and I still do this. I go out right before bedtime and I gaze at the stars, and I don't know why. I just want to look to the stars and find answers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a part of me that always keeps me going, because anybody that stays in this stuff and researches it, and being a radio host, you interview a lot of people, some with positive, some with negative.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the things and the technology, like you talked about being used as a lab rat and stuff, it can be very depressing. But I will always believe that humanity, besides what people say, well, the aliens come here because we're the redheaded stepchildren, we're not as smart as them, blah, blah, blah. I think the opposite, Solaris. I think that humanity is so unique, so magnificent. We have the capability of doing such good and feeling such love in our hearts that they want what we have. They want what we have integrated into who they are. And that, as far as I know, is I've never heard of a happy alien. I've never heard of a happy reptilian, have you?
No, and actually, a lot of the ones, well, the people that I encounter are usually the people in covert intelligence, and they're miserable. Even though they pretend
Miserable.
to be happy, they're very disjointed and compromised on a psychological level, fragmented on a spiritual level. If they're in denial, they're in denial. But that's really me profiling all these agencies, and they're connected into these. You want to call it the black space program, you can call it that. But when I look at it, I see the more insidious, devious acts are really being done by the underground against our star people. The beings here, our contactees. So
Well, it's
yeah.
funny you said that because I think Derek Tyler would agree with you. I think that's part of the information that the colonel portrayed to him. He said, it's not so much them as it is us.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
And that was shocking to me that would come from a man of such high security clearance. I mean, all I know is this. My fiance said whenever he went on a base, he would always be the highest officer there, the highest ranking officer wherever he went.
Mm-hmm.
So I know if that's the truth. And I mean, why would somebody of that credibility speak out about all this stuff and say all this stuff? I mean, I wish I had a good memory as my fiance. He remembers every, this is true, this is just a fun thing about him. He'll kill me for saying it, but I'm going to anyhow. He can remember the words to every song because he had an early career in music. He can remember every song word for word. I'm not kidding you. Part of our things that we do for fun is I'll say, bet you don't remember this song. Well, out of about 2,000 songs that I've come up with, I think there was one song. He said, well, I'm not familiar with that, I don't think, but I was giving it the wrong title. And then later it turns out, yeah, he did know about it. But he has almost, I don't know if you know Dr. Bill Deagle, who is a great researcher. He has a photographic memory.
Mm-hmm.
Derek sort of has that. He has that kind of memory for detail. And when I read over, Alien Contact, The Difficult Truth, I thought, man, first of all, I was very envious. I was very envious because I thought, man, I can't write like that. But, we're never supposed to be jealous of anybody's gift. Each one of us has our own gift.
Mm-hmm.
We have our own gift, and we need to look at our gift and do it the best that we can do. And I have one of my mama's gifts. And her gift was she could talk to a stranger. She could talk to anybody, and she did. We'd be on the street watching a parade, and next thing I know, this woman was going to be coming over to our house and getting some tomatoes out of the garden. And, she could talk to anyone, and I'm like that. I can.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk and listen to anyone. I never, even though some of these abductees, they have a rough life. They sometimes go on to have problems with addiction because they're trying to get some sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will start counseling them, talking with them, and offering suggestions about how to get some sleep.
That's excellent. So you do counseling?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful.
And that is one of the things that I've been able to help with. One of the things, my fiance talked about is, he said, how do you learn not to sleep again? You drink tons and tons of coffee and you're just so afraid. Human beings, especially men, feeling helpless is not a good thing because how can you protect yourself?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, something that's it's not an invisible force, but it's something beyond the realm of the linear world to some degree.
And you can lock your door, but that doesn't stop them. They can come through your window. They come through portals, other dimensions. They're all not just hovering in a UFO over your house. No, that's not it.
Mm-hmm.
They are able to come through portals. They are able to materialize. Um, there's no protection against them, and if they really want to take you, there are things you can do to discourage them. I know James Bartley. You know James
Yeah, I
Bartley's.
love James. He's awesome.
I love him. He is my brother.
Mm-hmm. He's great.
He's part of the tribe. You know
Yep, I see
him
that.
and Lori and Lori Moon Boggs. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
love them to death. But he said, there's one thing you can do. You can scream in your mind. You can scream because the Greys, whenever they try to abduct you, any kind of outside noise or clatter or things you can think of can sort of discombobulate their, you know, concentration.
Mm-hmm.
James said, call out my name. Think about me. He said, I can come. I can come astrally. Make noise. Just don't go down quietly. And so I try to do these things. Um, I listen to music at night times, a lot of times, 432 megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there are frequencies that seem to repel them, so to speak. And I don't know if this helps 100% of the time. All I know is sometimes it sure does help me. I get sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and Derek has been able to sleep better.
That's
There are
good.
techniques and things we can do to help each other.
I
You
agree. And
know?
even sharing the information like you're doing is very healing on some level too. I was going to ask you, you did mention briefly that there was an alphabet agency that contacted you um,
hmm
a couple months ago. What was that about, if you want to share that or not?
Well, it was weird. Okay, I won't say the whole initial, but it started with an F.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, we know
and
who they are.
yes, and I don't mention I found this out from this person that they have word crawlers out there, word crawlers on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
word crawlers on radio
Mm-hmm.
that are attuned to specific words that get the attention from at that server, and then they'll start investigating you. Well, I contacted by this person who asked me, he said, why do you have to be associated with a whistleblower for? And, I don't give out any personal information about myself because there are people like that out there.
Mm-hmm.
And he said because he had written a book. He was going to be a guest on my show for his book. It's what it
Mm-hmm.
was. I said, well, sure, because his book was about paranormal stuff. And I said, sure, you can be on my show. But then he said, well, I wrote about in my book, the whistleblower doesn't really get anything good in return for what he does. Look at Edward Snowden.
Mm-hmm.
But I disagree. What did we learn from Edward Snowden? America was alerted to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, it's been in the news ever since then about, there are programs in each of our states. There are centers that monitor every phone call we have.
Oh, yeah.
Every single phone call. It brought to the attention that we were even spying on, um, like over in Britain, the Queen's family, Princess Diana's sons, that there was eavesdropping going on to Russia,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really. I mean, it was sort of like Watergate, but it was like Worldgate.
Yeah, it's Intel gone bad, and they're doing that so they can actually blackmail. Usually, that's why they're trying to acquire data mining. Yeah.
Exactly. And I found out from this person, when I was telling him, well, I said, I disagree. I think whistleblowers, they're heroes. They're heroes because they're telling us our world is gone bad and our freedoms and our liberties are being jerked away from us at an alarming rate. And we are funding these people. We're putting them up in big mansions. They're going all over the world. They're riding in cars that we could only dream about even having for one day. We probably couldn't even rent one of these cars these people drive. They have money. They are taking the food out of our children's mouths.
Mm-hmm.
And and nobody is trying to do anything about it. So that is why I think whistleblowers help. Well, he said, I don't think it could benefit anybody because the outcome doesn't cover what they have to go through. And on one level, I agree. Nobody really has had an easier life because of being a whistleblower. But you know what? There right now, I think Apple is fighting against the police agencies that want to hack into phones and get information. They're saying no. And I think Apple is doing that because of what Edward Snowden did.
Well, yeah, I think more people need to stand up. There's no doubt about it. One thing I do question is the credibility of anybody who shows up and claims they're part of those alphabet agencies. Make sure that they really are who they say they are. Sometimes they're not. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I will say that there are imposters out there, and I don't trust any of these guys anymore. So,
well, this guy that contacted me, I mean, he made it no secret that that's what he used to do. But I didn't see any credentials. But I do know this that a week after that, I was no longer on that radio station.
Interesting.
Right, and that he was also a friend of the owner. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that seemed very strange to me. And he did say this, and this is what was really frightening, Solaris. Whenever he was writing this stuff to me, like, he would not write out whole words. If it was about the government, he would spell it Gov blank blank blank. Specific words he wouldn't spell out because he knew, as I did, about the word crawlers on Facebook. All right, and this is the thing that he said. I said, well, he was asking about the book and everything, and how long ago that the book had been written of this person had written. And I said, well, how long did they go back? I said, if they investigated you 20 years and you're going to put out a book now that they didn't want you to, I said, are they going to remember that? He said, they have a memory to go back as far. He says, they never forget. They never forget. And then he wrote this, don't let your friend get K-I blank 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 ED. So how would you rate that conversation? That was like a warning, I believe. That was like a warning.
Yeah, it is. And for me, I don't tolerate any of those guys at all because of where I've been with the covert technology. I just don't even tolerate any of them. First of all, they're all compromised. And I will say, anybody who used to work for those agencies, when they say they're not working there anymore, is usually still connected in some way. There's no such thing as retiring from the CIA. It doesn't happen. They never retire. I don't care what anybody says. And another thing is, too, I would really strongly suggest that he gets that book published because that will protect him more than you realize. That is not going to hurt him. That's going to keep him shielded, if you ask me. The one thing that we have all learned through our inductions and our covert experiences is that put the information out there and stay out there so that you're visible. So if something does happen, people will notice. And I think that's important. I think that's extremely important.
Well, the book is already copyrighted and multiple copies put in safe places. And so it's in the formatting stage right now and will be out in a couple of weeks.
Perfect.
So, and I agree with you, Solaris. I have a saying, and and now this will freak your mind, but I used to be a Sunday school teacher a long, long time ago. And there was a verse in the Bible that said, whatever is in darkness can harm you. Bring it to the light and will lose its power over you. And it's just like Bob Lazar, whenever if he hadn't come, he came out with all of his information at one time, everything. That's actually what saved his life.
Yep.
It's what saved his life. Okay. I told Derek, I said, get it all out there. Tell everybody, if anything happens to me, this is why. And it's sad that you have to do that, but, look at all the people like Forrestal and all these other people that were involved, that were in the government, and they got killed. Look at Phil Schneider. Look at all these people that died And it's not being paranoid. It's saying, you know, I trust myself. I know that the information I have is right, and they wouldn't be doing all these things all these years, keeping everything suppressed, if it didn't mean wasn't of high value to them,
Hmm.
because it's their money.
Right. I always say censoring the truth is admission of guilt. That's my new saying. And I'm telling you, that's what they're doing in one form or another. But yeah, keeping him out there. And, you're more than welcome, both of you, to come on my shows. If you want to talk about the book together, that's an open invitation to you and him together. And also, anytime. So just let me know anything I can do.
I will let you know, because the more of a voice that we have, I think I just feel whenever I speak with people like you and James and Lori and Peter Robbins and Bruce Maccabee. I just love Bruce Maccabee. He's wonderful. He's a physicist and
Hmm.
he's written several books. People like this and Dr. Mitchell, all of us, I think we are. This is a higher calling. This is
Hmm.
a higher calling. Nobody does this for money.
Right.
Nobody does this because they're bored and they need something to do. You do this because you feel in your heart that it's the right thing for humanity to know
Hmm.
that we are not alone, they're not all friendly, and that we've been lied to, and everything that we ever thought was true is not what it seems.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the new paradigm. It has to happen. Everything else is imploding. The old system doesn't work, and I don't think it ever did, Deborah. The problem is they've been brainwashing and compromising people, and giving them the wrong data for so long, for so many decades, that now we've got a society that deep down in the cells and the atoms, thank goodness there are contactees who actually know the truth, and that gives them the inspiration to keep going to higher levels. Then you've got them running interference, these covert divisions that are just doing damage control. It's out of control. It's completely out of control. So yeah, we stand here and we're strong as pillars of light, as I say, and we're here to radiate that truth and let nothing stand in our way. That's all there is to it. So.
I agree, and I think of James Bartley. This all started out with him. He had a
Mhm.
horrible experience with the reptilians,
Mhm. Yeah, he did.
horrible.
Mhm.
And when I first interviewed him, my heart was in my throat. I thought, wow, I'm so grateful for someone like you who was military, who had security clearance, for a man to come out and say, that a reptilian, an extraterrestrial race, forced themselves on him. That's not something easy for men to talk about. It's
Mhm.
not. It's not easy for Derek Tyler to talk about having, you know, what is it they do to men? They take semen samples and they take them in a way that it's like a rape.
Mhm.
And that was a horrific chapter for him to talk about. But you
Right.
know what? I said, you have no idea how many men will read that, and a great darkness that they have carried on their shoulders will be released. It will be out. They will feel like a part of humanity again. We
Right.
have to keep on doing this, Solaris. You have to keep on doing your shows. I have to do my shows. People that can write books need to write their books. Don't be afraid, because in unity we stand together, a stronger part of humanity, to bring the truth to everyone.
Mhm. Absolutely. What came to mind when you were mentioning that was Betty and Barney Hill. He went through something similar, like a procedure like that, didn't he?
He sure
Yeah.
did, and that was hard for him to talk about. I know when
Mhm.
they did the when they did the regression, he first, when they wrote the book, he didn't want that part. He said, "No, I don't want to talk about that." It's just like with a woman that's raped. You don't want to talk about that. That's focused on you, on your personal body.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't have any issue with starseed people, but I do have issue when they think all extraterrestrials are their space brothers.
Mhm.
Because if you talk to Daryl Sims, he'll look at you, he'll cut his eyes at you, and he'll say, "That is not true." He said, "When I found out they were abducting my son, I knew then that had to stop."
Mhm.
Because if a human being would come in your house and take you out against your will, force a medical procedure on you, that is a crime and you'll go to prison.
Well, it is, but I'll tell you what, covert military, and they're doing it all the time in covert induction. They're
They
doing it, and they're
are.
not extraterrestrials. I call them the subhuman, but they live in the underground. These are military personnel, black ops, taking people,
Brainwashed,
and they're
yeah,
using
brainwashed.
psychotronic weapons also to create mind control programs, which simulate an extraterrestrial experience. That's another avenue. So once again, there are so many insidious programs happening. Yeah, and that is illegal, and it is a war crime, and so is misusing covert technology to strip somebody psychologically with psychotronic weapons. And I'm on the front lines of that, exposing it because they're misusing it. And it's very concerning. It's very serious. We need to really address these things. There's no doubt
We
about it.
we do. Oh gosh, I'm just loving you more and more. I tell you what, it's hard to find anybody that takes this as the serious subject that it is, because the amount of technology that they have. I mean, you hear NASA talking about, well, we're going to try to do this so we can get people to Mars. You know, all of us know they've already been to Mars. You know, they already have that technology. There is so much that we don't know. We only have the tip of it. We only have the tip of it. And but you know what? They're getting sloppy. The world is getting so big. There's so many people who are smart, who are connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to my saying, we are all a piece of the puzzle. There's no one researcher that has it all right. There's not one. But you know what? All of us together, we do. We've got to keep on talking. We've got to connect. We've got to learn not to be afraid to approach someone and say, well, hey, I heard you talking on the radio and you had this experience. Can I tell you about mine? When somebody comes to me like that, first of all, I take it into my strictest confidence,
Mm-hmm.
and my heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to them because I go back to when that happened to me, and I know how I felt. And I don't want that to happen to my grandchildren, to all of my family that I leave behind when I'll leave this world one day. I don't want to leave that legacy behind.
Mm-hmm.
We have got to change the direction that our country is taking before it's too late.
I agree. I so agree. Well, we are moving it in the right direction, and as I see it, it's all kind of imploding. It doesn't have any place to go. You know, lies eventually just phase out. The truth is always going to oversee everything, in my opinion. Anyway, I see it as that. So I do see this stuff imploding, and of course, yeah, the more technology we have, the more we can share on the internet, globally speaking, which is huge. It's really big.
It is huge, and the amount of people who, I look at Alex Jones, all the people he has on his shows, and Art Bell, and your show, and mine, and many of the other shows. Who I know a lot of people think, well, oh, I used to think, well, I wonder if anybody's listening. I wonder if anybody's out there. I used to broadcast from Pilot Mountain in a little office I had out there in rainstorms, and you know how this goes. Skype
Mm-hmm.
is acting up, and you lose your guest, about five times.
Right.
But you know what? I just keep on going. I just
Mm-hmm.
keep on doing this. It's that important to me. I don't care if people laugh at me because I'm from the South. They think we're crazy anyhow,
Oh,
so
you
I
have a
don't
great
care.
accent. I love your Southern accent. It's so pretty. Yeah.
Well, we've all got to enjoy the parts of us that make us who we are. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I am. This is who you are. We do where our heart leads us, and that makes it all the more right for us to keep on doing it. If there are abductees out there right now, feel free to contact me. Go to Facebook, Debra Jayne East, or go to Notes from the Underground. I have a blog, notesfromtheunderground.blogspot.com. You can find me. Just Google my name. You'll be able to find me because I've been out here for a while. If you've got a story you want to tell, then I'm here. I'll listen to you. And if I can't help you, I know plenty of people who can.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, once you bring the story out, then it can't hurt you. You don't have to carry it. Some of these loads are so heavy, it's hard for a human being to carry them.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. And also let everybody know about your radio show when they can tune in and listen.
Oh, yes, I'm on every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, and that's, let's see, that is 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's on PSN radio, and you can go on Notes from the Underground and find all the links and find my first show, which was last week, and listen to the show. And you know what helps us a whole lot? I know this helps you, Solaris, if
Mm-hmm.
people will just comment or like the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like the show, because you know how Facebook is. The more likes that you get, the more comments, it raises the algorithms and it goes up higher in the feed. I will say this, I have a phenomenal team of people, and I don't even pay these people. They do it because they care. I have Sam Offer, I have Antoinette Galloway, of course, Naomi Swan, James Bartley, Derek Tyler, Derek Savory. There's a list that goes on and on. Every time I have a show, they'll share it or they'll tell somebody about it or they're calling me up and say, hey, this researcher is on the money. You need to contact him. You know what? You are as much a part of this as I am. It all makes a difference to me. And I want to thank all of you guys out there that do things to help me. Because, you know, we could all use a little help now and then.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And we're just about out of time here. Deborah, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I hope to have you back very, very soon on both of my shows. And I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope you appreciate the information. I know you have. And please stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mickey coming up next to sell you into the night from Down Under, as they always do with their incredible show. And I think we're just about out of time here. Deborah, is there any last minute? No, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Deborah. It's been a wonderful interview. So appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Good night.
Night, everyone.